We are in Chapter 7, and we're going to go over the group exercise for the corridor modifications for ramp number 4. So we're going to open up in our Data 7 folder the corridors ramp 4 job number drawing. So if I look over here in Data 7, I've got a corridors ramp 4 and then the job number. So I'm going to go ahead and double click to open that up. Okay, the design file has opened up and you can see we've got Route 54 in here and ramp 4. Here's ramp 4 here and Route 54 out here. So let's take a look at the manual and see what we have in here. So within this drawing, we've got an issue here that when super elevation was applied to Route 54 corridor in the last chapter, the end slopes of Route 54 now overlap the ramp 4 corridor, as shown here and in our 3D view. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off that Route 54 so that we can see underneath of it. So to help visualize the ramp 4 corridor, turn off the reference display for the Route 54 corridor in the 2D and 3D views. Okay, so the way we do that is whichever banner is highlighted, that's the one you're affecting. So we're under Open Roads Modeling Home, and we're going to go to the Attach Tools. So we're going to the Reference dialog, and we're going to locate that Route 54 corridor here, and we're going to go ahead and turn it off. And we're going to do the same thing for over here. You'll notice once I switch banners here, the information in the dialog also switches. So we got the Route 54 here, and we can turn off the display for that one. Okay, so now all we see is our ramp 4. Alright, so that's our first actual step in there. It says set the active template library to our job number ITL. Okay, that is done also in Open Roads Modeling. We're going to go to Corridors, and we have the template with the hammer. That is our Create Template tool that opens our ITL. So we'll go ahead and select that. And it opens up to the mo.itl, so we're going to do a file open. And we're going to locate our Data 7 folder. And we're going to grab the job number.itl from there. Okay, we'll open that up. Alright, so now there's our file here, the ITL that's got our ramp 4, our Route 54 and all that located in it. So we can just close that now. That's our current active ITL. It says due to the super elevation being applied, the retaining wall footing is now hitting the curb and gutter and shoulder. So right in this location, it has modified or changed where our wall is actually hitting the rest of our corridor. Okay, so we're going to come down here, and in both ramp 4 template drops, we're going to adjust the left retaining wall footing profile point so that it has the following constraints. So on template drop 1, we're going to have a horizontal value of 23.5, and on template drop 2, a horizontal value of 24.5. Okay, and then also we're going to add a parametric label, so a constraint label for retaining wall offset. So later on we're going to change what this offset is, so we'd have to go in and have that ability to change that with a parametric constraint. We need a label to do that. Okay, so a couple different ways that you can do this. If you want to do it just in the design file, you can do that. If you come in and make your default window active, you can come out here and select each one of these and make this change. So this will be your first template drop. So if you highlight that, let your mouse rest over it, you can come out here and modify or edit the template drop. Okay, that's with the heads up tool. Okay, inside of here we are looking for the left retaining wall footing profile. Okay, so you can kind of see if you jump around in here, there's all kinds of different points that we have in here. Here's the left retaining wall footing profile, as you can see right there. Okay, left retaining wall footing profile. So we're going to look at that point, and right now I don't believe it has very many constraints at all, but we'll take a look at it. We're going to set it up as shown in the dialog here. So we're going to double click on this point. Has nothing set up currently in it, so we're going to set these constraints. Okay. So if we look at this, the first one over here on the left hand side, we're doing a horizontal, and we're going to base it off the concrete TCL. So let's go change that to horizontal, and we're going to base that off the concrete point TCL. So there's a little pick button there that lets us go locate that. Scroll over, we'll let you scroll over there. Okay, see if we can find the concrete TCL. There it is. It's where the curb and gutter over here meet this far edge. So we're going to select that. You can also just pull it from a drop down if you don't want to try and go locate it out there. Okay, right now it's set at negative 23.5, and that's what it should be. So vertically, we're also going to be a negative 3. So vertical from that same point, and you can go out here and you can pick it off the screen, or you can try, like I said, and grab it in here. If there's a lot of them to choose from, you can just go pick the pick point and select it. Okay, right now it's at negative 1.94. We're going to change that to negative 3 and apply that. Now, also in this dialog, we're going to set up a retaining wall offset label for our horizontal distance. Okay, you can look to see if there's one in here already. If there's not, then you can just go put it in. Okay, retaining wall offset. Okay, so we'll add that in, hit apply, and we'll close that out. If we zoom out, now that point is red and it used to be green. So now we have applied some constraints to it. Okay, we've done that for our first template drop. So we'll say OK to that, and that will go out and change our retaining wall a little bit. Okay, then we're also going to do the same thing for the south portion of our templates. And we're going to do the same thing. The only difference here is that we're going to have a horizontal value of 24.5 instead of 23.5. So everything else looks to be the same there. So we're going to go modify this point. You can zoom in, you know it's this one. Okay, we're going to do a horizontal. We're going to base it off of this other point that's out here. Concrete TCL. Negative 24.5 on this one, so we'll go ahead and apply that. On the constraint number 2, we'll do a vertical. Okay, and our vertical for this one, if we look over here, we are at negative 3. Okay. Alright, so we'll do negative 3. And we'll also pick our point. So it should look like this. Vertical, concrete TCL, negative 3. Apply that. Our label here, if we need a label in this one, we can do that. We can go down. It should be in the list now, I think, but I don't know that I see it in here. Okay, I don't see it in there, so I'll just go ahead and type it again. Retaining wall, and then that last thing was offset. Okay, so we've applied that. We've applied that to our point. Should now be red, which it is. You can double click to check and make sure everything's in there. Negative 2450, negative 3, retaining wall offset. So we'll close that and we'll say OK here. I'm going to double check this one just to make sure we've got everything in there that we need. I always like to double check things, especially in ORD. So double click that, retaining offset, wall offset, negative 23.5, negative 3. Okay, we are good here with our template drop changes. Okay, so what that did is it allowed this point to be moved around according to the center line and to go over and down a certain distance. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to modify the left retaining wall cut depth point that is in there, and it has the following constraints. So we need to go find the left retaining wall cut depth, which is at this location. So we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to modify these template drops. So we get the heads up tool. Second tool in there is to edit it. And we're looking at this point here, retaining wall cut depth. Retaining wall cut depth. Okay, and so let's go ahead and double click on that point and see what the settings are currently. We've got a 2, which it has set at negative 2. And we also have a negative 2%. So let's change our slope here on the right side. This one also has now being the left curb surf back. Okay, so we're going to change this to left curb surf back. Now you can try to find it in here again. Okay, right here, left curb surf back. We'll change it to that. And we're going to do a negative 2%. Okay, let's zoom out here where we can kind of see it. We'll apply that, and then we'll do the same thing on this side. It's also going to left curb surf back, and it's a negative 2 horizontal. Okay, so we'll go up here, left curb surf back. That needs to change to horizontal. And once you apply that, it's still over here. Now we've got a value of 100. We can make it negative 2. Okay, that'll take it back to where we want it to be. Apply and close that. And now you can see we've got it up where we want it to be. It's no longer going through this location as it was before. Now it's up and back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and double check that point to make sure. Negative 2, negative 2. Left curb surf back, horizontal and slope. So horizontal and slope, left curb surf back, negative 2 and negative 2%. So we are good. So last time we didn't change that horizontal to vertical, and you can see it pushed it way over to the right. So we just make sure that we match what we're trying to do. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the second one. So let's go ahead and say OK to that. We're going to come down here into the bottom part, do the same thing. Edit template drop. Okay, we've got our left retaining wall cut depth. We're going to double click that point again. We're going to change this to horizontal. Change this to, I can go ahead and actually pick on the button, or I can do a down arrow, whichever you prefer to do. If you decide you want to do the pick button, then you have to go find that curb surface back, although in this particular one there is no curb surface back, right? So you're basing this one off the left concrete TOEOS. Okay, so that's what you want to do here. You want to base that one off this point. Okay, negative 2, you can see it applies it in there, so we'll apply it. Okay, and that makes a recursive thing, so what we want to do then is come back here in the slope, and we're going to also base it off the left concrete TEOS. Okay, and we're doing a negative 2%. We'll enter that in, and you can see it pops right up there where it needs to be. Okay, so by making this horizontal from this location, it didn't like how the slope was set up or the second constraint was set up. So once it cleared it out, you're able to put in the correct one. So we apply that and close it, and now we have the same thing on the south side of this. Okay, so we'll say OK to that. That gets our two template drops edited that we needed to edit. And then so now we're on ready for step number 5 here. So in the next few steps, we're going to try to transition the ramp 4 curb and gutter template to the shoulder template. So what that means is right in this location, it's just like the picture in the manual, we have a different width here for our curb and gutter and our shoulder. So we're going to try to make those line up. And that's what this next section here is going to do. So in this step, we're going to set up a parametric label constraint to help transition the curb width out over a distance to match the shoulder width. So in the ramp 4 template, which this is going to be the one with the curb and gutter, so the first one up there, we're going to go in and modify constraint number 2 to make sure that it's got a left gutter width. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to get the heads up tool on that template drop. Get the second tool in there. You could also be modifying this in the ITL and then synchronizing with the ITL if you prefer to work that way. You can do that. Okay, so the point that we're going to look at here is the left curb surf flow line. Okay, so here's the left curb surf flow line. We're going to double click that point. And over on the right side there, we've got to add a constraint. I don't know if there's one in the list. You can always do a drop down and see. If not, you can type it in, LT gutter width. Okay, then we'll apply that and close that out, and then we can just say OK here. No changes will really be reflected yet. All we did was add a parametric constraint that we can change for that first portion. Okay, so next we're going to go in and with the ramp 4 corridor grips, we're going to open up the heads up tool, and then we're going to look at the corridor creation tools, which is the hammer, and then we're going to go to the parametric constraint tool. So get the heads up display for your corridor, get the hammer or the corridor creation tools, and then we're going to go to the parametric constraints, which is the question mark and dimension line icon. Inside of here, what we're doing is we're going to make that curb and gutter move out over 10 feet. We're going to have it go from 2.5 foot to 4 foot to match the shoulder width. And we're going to do that over a distance of 10 feet. So we're going to go from the start here, which is going to be 2 plus 40. And we'll lock that in, and we're going to go to 2 plus 50. And we'll lock that in. The constraint label that we're wanting to find is that left gutter width that we just put in. And so we'll have to scroll down. It doesn't necessarily put things in order. Sometimes it does. In this case, it looks like it pretty much puts them in alphabetical order. At least the one I'm working with here. So the left gutter width, we're going from the negative 2.5 feet to negative 4 feet. So that should push it out there for us. Now we've got the dialog all filled out. All we have to do is come out here and accept it on the screen. So we'll hit a left for the 2 plus 40, left for the 2 plus 50, left gutter width, we'll accept that. Our start value is the default of negative 2.5, we'll accept that. And then a stop value of negative 4 foot and accept that. You should see that pop out there now to where those two actually line up. So my curb is going from 2.5 feet at 2 plus 40 to 4 feet at 2 plus 50. So there's a transition that's happening in there. That's pretty much how MoDOT does transitions. We don't really use the transition tool that comes with the program, the transitions. A lot of times we'll deal with parametric constraints. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then, we've got that in. Also, there's a little note here, and this could affect you. It's something to notice. The ORD version that we have right now may not be the version that you're going to be doing this exercise on, but if it is, the current version as of the end of September here in 2020, it doesn't recognize station equations for your parametric constraints. Route 54, I believe, does have a station equation, so it might be off a little bit in that one, so you just want to double check and make sure on that. So that's a little note here for ORD. If you're unsure, you can always call CAD support or send an email and find out if that's been updated or fixed in the current version you're working in. Okay, the next thing we want to do then is we want to bring down, you can see it here in view number 2, we are above over here, we're above, and we want to bring that down to where these two surfaces match. Okay, so in the next few steps we're going to adjust the template so the ground line between the retaining wall and the back of the curb will transition down to the elevation at the edge of the shoulder. So right there is what we're talking about. Okay, it says to right click on it. You can do that. So we're going to open up, in this case you can see it's the curb and gutter, so it's the first one that we have in there, our first template drop. We're going to open up that template drop and edit the template drop. Okay, when that comes in, we're going to be in this area right here. What we have is we have this retaining wall cut depth, this line that's for the ground line, and that's the line that you see out here. And what happens is we're not allowed to adjust that up or down without also adjusting up and down our curb, because they're all tied together. So if I were to look at this point at this location, you can see that that point is part of the left curb and gutter, and it's also part of the wall lower ground. So that point is part of both of those. So you wouldn't be able to adjust this up and down without adjusting both. So these next few steps are going to allow us to create basically a point that we can put over the top of this other point, but remove it from our curb and gutter so that we can have free control over this line right here. All right, so we're going to right click on that left retaining wall lower ground, which these are not named out here where you can see them, but that's this line right here. If you click on it, let your mouse rest on it, left retaining wall lower ground, that is that line. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it, and we're going to do an insert a point, and we're going to put it right over the left curb surf back. So we're going to put it right there. So we're going to right click over the top, we're going to do insert point, and we're going to put it right over the top of that left curb surf back. Okay, when you're done with that, you'll right click and finish. Okay, now that new point out there is a green point. It's over the top exactly of that other point. And we're going to double click on that new point and give it a different name. So right now, it doesn't have a name. That's the one we're going to pick. And it'll open that up and we'll give it that name. It's called right, or RT, retaining wall cut depth. You might even be able to get it from the pull down list if it's in here, but I do not see it in there. You might have been able to get one that's similar to what you want to name it, but not in this case. So right, retaining wall cut depth. So we've entered that in. We'll hit apply on that. It will give it that name. Go ahead and stay in there. Okay, so now it says after you've named it, we can right click on the new placed point and select delete point. Okay, so this seems kind of strange that we're going to right click on top of the point that we just created and delete it. But what you're really doing is you're deleting components or other points that are connected to that point. So what we're doing in this case is we've added a point, it's over the top of other points, so it's part of both the curb and the lower ground line. and we want to take that point and not have it part of the curb. Okay, so in this dialog, we can go ahead and close that one out. We're going to right click over that point and hit delete point. Okay, so it wants to know, where do you want to delete this point from? I want to delete it from the left curb surf back because I don't want it to be part of that one. So I'm going to pick that one, and it says then to delete that point, where do you want to delete it from? Well, deleting that from the left retaining wall lower ground component, then that would leave just the curb for the other one. It says note here, the left curb surf back point was included in both the ground and the curb components. So we're going to get rid of it from here and click OK. Okay. So now when we double click on this point, let's say we're going to take a look at this retaining wall cut depth. You can see that it is only part of the left retaining wall. That's it. So it's not part of this curb surf back any longer. Okay, so you can see that's the way it's set up. And right now we don't have any constraints. We're going to add some constraints next. If we take a look at the left curb surf back, you can see now it is just part of the curb and gutter. So what we just did is basically deleted that new point out of the curb, so we didn't want it to be part of it. Okay. All right, so after we've deleted that, come down here and we're going to add this information to that retaining wall cut depth that we just did. So that green point that's out there, we're going to double click on it and we're going to open it up. So right retaining wall cut depth. Okay, so it is only part of this now. So now that we've separated those out, now we can move this ground line up or down and it won't affect the curb and gutter. Or we can change the curb and gutter and it won't affect this. If you wanted to affect them both at the same, that's possible to do, but you'd have to control both points that way. Okay, so we're going to set this up to be a vector offset of the left concrete edge of pavement and the concrete TCL. So whatever that slope is, we're going to go down negative 6.566. Could be down, could be up. The signs here are just how the thing was created, so we'll see what that does for us. But we're going to do vector offset. So we'll do vector offset here. And we're going to say the left concrete TEOP. Okay, so left concrete TEOP right here. And the concrete TCL. So whatever this slope is right here, between that and this center line, concrete TCL, so whatever that slope is, we're going to go down negative 6.566, and that's what it's sitting at currently. So we can apply that. So that's where it's located right now. So whatever that slope is, that's where that's going to try to put that. Okay. Next thing that we have then is our constraint label, or our constraint number 2 is a horizontal. It is from the left curb surf back. So we're going to go ahead and use the little pick button, and that is pretty much the point that it was on before. So if you look at that, kind of hard to get in there, but that's your left curb surf back. Okay, and we're going to be right on top of that. Now we're going to apply that. More than likely, we're going to add some point labels here, some parametric constraint labels, in order to control that height. Let's take a look. So select ramp 4 corridor grips and bring up the heads up tool. We're going to do another parametric constraint. Okay, here it is. Over here on the left hand side, the left ground height. Okay, so that's where we're going to control what the height of that is. So horizontally, we're going to be right on top. We're going to be right here horizontally. So it's not going to move left or right on this. We're going to be right in this area. And then the vertical offset, so whatever the pavement does down there, we're going to be able to control that with a parametric constraint by giving it this left ground height label. So LT ground height. Okay, and we'll apply that. So that is going to control your vertical. So horizontal, you're going to be right there. But now we can control it up or down with this parametric constraint. So we've applied that. We can close it, say OK. All right, and then all we're going to do is come out here now. It says for the parametric constraint, we're going to slide on down. We're going to grab the ramp 4 grips. And again, with the heads up tool, we're going to pick on the corridor creation tools. We're going to pick on create parametric constraint. And in the parametric constraint dialog, we're going to make it match what's in the manual here. We're going to go basically just over 5 foot. We're going to bring this down. Okay, and you'll see what's going to happen down below here. But so we're at 2 plus 45 to 2 plus 50. And we're looking at the left ground height. So that picked the right one, but I'm going to go ahead and choose it anyway. Right now it's at negative 0.6566. We're going to bring that to 0. And then all we're going to do is come out and accept that information on the screen. And you can look over here in your 3D window at what's going to happen at that location. It brought it down, just like you see here in the manual. Okay, so it brought it down there. The next thing that we want to do is you can see that it's got that area right here where it's not matching this slope. So we're going to go out and change that in step 14. In this step, we're going to modify the parent point of the left retaining wall cut depth point that's out there. It's currently pointing to the left curb surf back, which we did earlier in this example. Okay, and it's causing our ground slope not to draw at a 2% slope. So we're going to adjust the parent point of the slope and horizontal constraint to go to this right retaining wall cut depth. Now what's happening with this is we took that line. It might be easier just to show you inside of the template drop. So let's open up that template drop again. Okay, when we look at our template drop, what we did before with this retaining wall cut depth is we made it go out and grab the left curb surf back. And we said always go to that point. That's your parent point. Well, what happens with that is this curb is not adjusting up and down. It's just the right retaining wall lower ground that's being adjusted, not the curb. So this point, its parent point, is looking at that left curb surf back, which is going to always be up here. So this point's not going to move up or down. It's going to stay looking at this point. So what we wanted this point to do is to go out and look at that new point we created. So when it goes down, this one goes down with it. Okay, so we have to adjust this parent point. So we'll double click on left retaining wall cut depth, and you can see our parent point, instead of being left curb surf back, we need it to be that new one that we created, the right retaining wall cut depth. And again, you could probably do it from the pull down list and maybe find it down here, but what I'm going to do is just hit the little pick button, go pick on that location. It says which one do you want. I want the right retaining wall cut depth, and we'll apply one side. We'll do the same thing to the other side, and now we've got it set to both. We'll hit apply, close that out, and as soon as I hit OK, it's going to re-crank the corridor and it's going to drop it down. So this point's no longer looking up here at this point. Now it's looking down here where our ground line has dropped to. Okay. The last thing that we're going to do in here is we're going to come in and modify this retaining wall width. So if we come in here and look at this and kind of see this retaining wall has, I think it's about a foot off of that other retaining wall. So we want those to meet each other. And so we're going to do a parametric constraint to have this one come from 23.5 and go out to 24.5 to match the one that's off the shoulder. Okay, so it says select the Route 4 corridor grips, and bring up the heads up tool, which we know how to do that. And we're going to do the hammer tool or corridor creations tool, parametric constraints, and we're going to add this parametric constraint. And once we do that, you'll see what happens to the retaining wall. So we're going to have to do this with the one on the north side, the first template drop. Okay. Now, what I like to do here with this template drop is I like to just double check before I add parametric constraint that in this location, in this retaining wall, that I do actually have everything the way I'd like it to be. Okay, so let's double check some of these points that are out here. This is the profile one. Right now it's 23.5 foot off of the center line. Okay, and there's the retaining wall offset. So that's the label that I'm going to work with here. So this right now is at 23.5. We're going to take it over 10 feet, 2 plus 40 to 2 plus 50, over 10 feet, and we're going to make it go out one more foot. So we're going to be changing this horizontal constraint. All right. So we're going to get the corridor grip. We're going to get the heads up tool on that. Go to the corridor creation tools and take a look down here at the parametric constraints again. In our create parametric constraint, we're going to do 2 plus 40, and it's going to 2 plus 50, so we're matching what we have in the manual here. The constraint label that we're going to look for is that that retaining wall offset. So we're going to do a down arrow. We're going to find that retaining wall offset. There we go. As you can see in this one with the curb and gutter, it's at negative 23.5, and we want it to end up at negative 24.5, which is what the one on the shoulder is. So we'll change that to negative 24.5, and we'll go ahead and accept all of the information that we've keyed into the dialog, and you should see that this retaining wall will now pop out to meet the one that's at the shoulder at that location. Okay, so now we've kind of fixed that side, the left side of the ramp. Okay. You could do the same thing over here to the right side of the ramp, and that would be something you would have to do. Basically everything's exactly the same. We just flip whether we're on the left or right points that we're working with. Okay, and that is your exercise for Chapter 7, dealing with parametric constraints on the ramp for a corridor.